Oh, hello. Welcome, everybody. We've got lots to discuss. We've got DACA. We've got guns. We've got more guns. We've got me. It's all coming up.
Progressivism is alive and well.
Jesus was considered a feminist.
What bugs me and a lot of other people is when periods are associated with womanhood.
Can we get your friend?
You're fucking a white male!
It's gender equality.
You're a fucking scumbag. In order to paint with our period blood, I have to collect my period blood.
I do not expect everyone in the world to understand my identity.
Oh, damn.
Everyone is valid and worthy of love.
Welcome, everybody. It is me. Once again, I'm lying to you. We're not live. But we will be in the future, but only to a select few. That's right. The group of people that decide to sign up on my Patreon page will get a live show. And those that do not will not. You only get a portion of the show. That's going to be how it works. By the way, go to the website, thenewmanshow.com. There you can contact me, send me an email. Just click email Newman. You can also check out all the wonderful things that happens on the website. All the links are right there. Wonderful news stories if you want to read about it yourself. And, of course, support the show. Just click support, takes you to the Patreon page. And there we go. What is going on in the world of news today? Today's top story, DACA. DACA! What a wonderful story. It's good stuff.
Dude, America first! America first! Get that through your head! Yeah. America first! America first! You heard that before?
Am I that scary?
What? America first! America first! What the hell, man?
I don't know.
America first! America first! To all of you, let me explain one damn thing. America, America, America. Dude, you understand? America, America, America. My point is America's first. America, America, America. What the hell, man? Globalists, no! Goblins, no! This is it. Everybody get ready! America first! America first! Get that through your head! Dude, America first! America first! You heard that before? What? America first! America first! Get that through your head! America first! America first!
Well, Mr. Jones. I wish somebody would put something like that together with me or for me. I've been trying to put something like that together, but my skills aren't quite there yet. So it is what it is. So DACA, it is something people are very angry about at this point in time because, it's still an issue. We're going to have to continue to talk about it. Blaze has a story. While the Senate was working towards an agreement to end the government shutdown, some DACA recipients in California tried to block the Disney entrance in protest. Those bastards. Yeah. That's going to change people. And it wasn't like a huge group of people. 15 dreamers and their supporters. That means there's probably one dreamer and then a bunch of posers. Stood in the streets and the crosswalk blocking a vehicle entrance to the park. It didn't take long before the police showed up, or at least the security guards, whatever it was, and got rid of them because, hey, this is a business. We got to make some money here. But there are people out there trying to make legitimate arguments, which there aren't very many, in regards to DACA, in regards to the dreamers out there, and from MSNBC, Ari Melber, I guess is his name, and he's not happy about the whole situation. He wants you to know about it, and this is actually kind of a long piece. We're going to end up stopping it a bit, but this is Ari from MSNBC on DACA.
My special report tonight. More than any other single issue, the shutdown debate has turned on the dreamers. What's the right legal status for 3.5 million undocumented young people who grew up here but are not citizens? If you listen to the Trump White House, you might think the answer to that question is hard or ideologically polarizing. You might even think Senate Democrats were over the line for demanding an answer up until tonight's vote.
It's not that they were demanding an answer. It's they were demanding that the people are allowed here to stay legally. And I would imagine eventually get the ability to vote and all those wonderful things. And that's the problem that most of us have with DACA is we know that it's, look, they do not have a legal right to be in the United States. Regardless of how they got here, they are still illegals. They do not have a legal right to be in the United States. And rule of law should rule the day. That's sort of the point. Now, if we want to work out a way where they can stay and never vote, I don't know. There's a lot of things that we could talk about here. But with DACA, the issue is not can we make a compromise. The issue is how quickly will all these people be legalized? That's the problem.
And to be fair to the wider immigration debate, there are polarizing immigration questions like how many refugees should we really admit, or how do you reform visas for workers with special skills? But
it's not like there's a debate there. The Democrats want everybody to come in, and frankly, in many of these instances, so do the Republicans, because the Republicans, of course, are bought and sold by certain special interest groups that want cheap labor, and so are the Democrats, and they have no problems with it. Plus, at the end of the day, I don't think Republicans really want to win anyway. I certainly don't think they want conservatives to win. So anything that they can do to make it easier to never be in a position of power, again, that's what they will do.
The fact is that policies to protect rather than punish child immigrants have not been very polarizing. That's a historical fact. The reason is pretty fundamental. As a society, we don't tend to punish babies and 4-year-olds and 8-year-olds for what their parents did. As a political matter, neither party has historically argued the government should use deportation to break up families.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sending the whole family back. We're talking about sending people that shouldn't be in the United States out of the United States.
Take President Reagan, who backed amnesty for undocumented immigrants who put down roots in the U.S.
I believe in the idea of amnesty for those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though sometime back they may have entered illegally.
And here's the problem, and the reason it's strange that you're bringing this up, because this is an issue that has been talked about on many occasions, and part of the reason why people are so hardline on immigration today, because we recognize that one of the biggest blunders of the Reagan administration was this amnesty deal. If you remember, well, most of us aren't going to remember. I'm 40 years old. I'm not 40. I'm 39. Anyway, I'm getting up there in age, and when all this stuff was going on, of course, I was very young, was not paying attention, but before my day, California was not liberal. It was not a blue state. California was a red state. And as soon as this amnesty happened, it suddenly became a blue state. Why? Because the people that were coming in have a history of socialism in their blood, and they vote for those sorts of things. And because there's such a huge number of them thrust into that state, the possibility of getting some sanity back in California is virtually nothing. So it was a mistake. You're going over mistakes that were made in the past to justify a future mistake we're trying to avoid.
Reagan's Republican rival and running mate, George H.W. Bush, held the same line in their 1980 primary debate.
Do you think that children of illegal aliens should be allowed to attend Texas public schools free, or do you think that their parents should pay for their education?
I don't want to see a whole, if they're living here, I don't want to see a whole thing of 6- and 8-year-old kids being made, one totally uneducated and made to feel that they're living with outside the law. These are good people, strong people. Part of my family is a Mexican.
So that's a reason. That's what it is. Well, it's my family, so I'm going to hurt the country because it's good for someone I know. That's not what a president should be. That is not what a leader should be. It's not what a leader is. That is the definition of corruption. We have laws on the books. We have a reason why we have laws on the books. And if people are coming here not having paid taxes or really even being part of our country, and they decide they want free stuff from the government, we shouldn't be giving it to them. Why? Because it's exactly that. It's stealing from the American people and giving to someone who shouldn't be here in the first place. That's number one. Number two, education funding wouldn't be an issue if we didn't fund the education. But I'm just saying.
Denying
Reagan went on to sign a bipartisan immigration reform law and issued guidance protecting some undocumented children from deportation while their parents pursued citizenship. His immigration commissioner announced that undocumented children would qualify for protection even if they came here with their parents.
Most times a child would probably qualify. They either came in with their parent or parents before 82, so they'd be covered there, or they were born here, and in which case they would be allowed to remain.
Then when Reagan's vice president succeeded him, Bush used his own power to prevent the deportation of 1.5 million undocumented immigrants and children based on the same premise: keep families together.
So it's been going on for a long time. It's a very powerful point that you're making, that this thwarting of the law from the very highest levels of government in both political parties has been going on for a long time. It's the reason why we are hardliners. We are tired of the law being destroyed. And by the way, it's very interesting when you try to come up with some sort of comprehensive immigration reform and you've got all these wonderful bills that you want to put through Congress. It's very, very difficult to get it done. Why? Because people, the American people, go absolutely apeshit and say no.
It was called the Family Fairness Policy.
It also credits the special role of immigrants to America, and it will promote a more competitive economy, respect for the family unit. This bill...
You know, you can just say things and people glass over it and don't really analyze it. How is it that diluting our worker base creates a more competitive economy? And what do you mean by more competitive economy? I don't want to have to compete against people that will do my same job, maybe not to the level that I do, but to do my same job for less money, undercutting what I can possibly make because, well, look at it from a radio perspective. It's why I never want to work in radio again. It doesn't matter how good you are in radio. It really doesn't. Because the quality of what's going out on the air today, I don't care what market you're in, sucks. So regardless of how good you are, it's how little you will work for. And the guy that will work for less will get the job. That is the truth. That is a fact. Now, when it comes to general work, there has always been this idea that there are certain jobs Americans won't do. This is coming from people that, you know, from New York, from L.A., wherever it was, city-fied folk, and they have no idea. They do not understand what levels and the sorts of things that people in the Midwest, rural people, will do to earn money. The issue is not jobs that we won't do. The issue is jobs we won't do for zero money. So the problem is you're diluting our worker base. You're diluting the market for labor, and that does not in any way bode well for America.
It's good for families.
His son, George W. Bush, signed the Child Status Protection Act, exempting children from being deported after aging out at 21.
One of the primary reasons America became a great power in the 20th century is because we welcomed the talent and the character and the patriotism of immigrant families.
So why did we shut down all immigration for a protracted period of time, meaning like 50 years? Why is that? If that was the sole reason why America became a superpower was the immigrants that were in the country, why is it that we ever stopped immigration? It is a platitude and it is ridiculous.
There are differences between an illegal immigrant who crossed the border recently and someone who has worked here for many years and has a home, a family.
And this is also the guy, by the way, not a big fan of George W. Bush. He's also the guy that decided that the Constitution doesn't matter and began to spy on all Americans. That's who George W. Bush is. He's a traitor.
3 Republican presidents, 1 principle defending undocumented children.
That's interesting, though, because he brings up the argument as if it makes sense. 3 Republican presidents. See, Republicans said this, which means my argument must be right. No. You can only believe that if your entire worldview is wrapped up in identity politics. Well, these people identify as a Republican, and if you identify as a Republican and a leader within said party, and you agree with me, then by God, every Republican should agree with me. Everyone on the opposite side should just thereby give up and agree with me, and I win the argument. No. We don't fall in lockstep with people like the Bushes and a bad decision by Reagan. We measure things based on their actual outcome. We make individual decisions on individual matters. We're not a globulous group of mindless idiots, your friends. We're not like your friends.
When Obama came into office, he pursued a bipartisan deal on immigration, but found, like George W. Bush, that Congress wouldn't play ball. So like those presidents, Obama used
Actually, that's not really true. I think Congress would have played ball if not for the people of the United States. Remember the first 2 years of Obama's presidency, he had control of everything. Both branches of Congress, both houses of Congress in the presidency, he was in control. And still, they couldn't get immigration done because the American people fought back.
Executive power to extend protection to undocumented children through DACA.
Are we a nation that accepts the cruelty of ripping children from their parents' arms? Or are we a nation that values families and works together to keep them?
It pisses me off when they talk about families because their entire structure of government from top to bottom is designed specifically to break apart families. That's what they do. When you make men irrelevant to raising children, okay, to supporting family and raising children, by instituting a state that will care for children, that will educate children, that will care for you as the female. When you create a state that can then take the position of a father, you're not only saying that you don't value the family, that you're actively fighting against the family. So to invoke the family, that you have done a wonderful job since FDR in breaking apart, speaking of the African American community, when you invoke the family, all I see is disingenuous hypocrisy.
Together.
That order gave all the Dreamers protection, but not certainty, because without Congress, it's not a law. It's an order that can be reversed any day by any president, which is, of course, what candidate Trump pledged to do.
I will immediately terminate President Obama's illegal executive order on immigration.
Trump campaigned by saying what he thought people wanted to hear, and when he won, his campaign rhetoric suddenly contradicted the kind of president he wanted to be, or wanted to be depending on the day, because Trump suddenly wanted everyone to know he loves kids. He didn't want to be the first president who would prioritize deporting them.
Now, I can understand that. I actually agree with the fact that it seems like Trump is going back on some of his immigration reforms that we were promised during the campaign. And I'm not happy about it. That's not an argument to convince me that he was wrong or that I am wrong to begin with. I can also look at it in a more nuanced way by recognizing that it isn't nice. The idea of kicking out Dreamers, it doesn't feel good because I get you. I completely understand the idea of a young person who was brought to this country through an illegal act by their parents that they had no influence over and raised within the United States. So that the United States, the thing that they see around them is the only thing they've ever known. And to be thrown out of that sounds awful. It sounds awful. It sounds mean and it's heart-wrenching, but it's also necessary. What is nice is rarely right, and what is right is rarely nice.
I love these kids. I love kids. I have kids and grandkids, and I find it very, very hard doing what the law says exactly to do. We're going to show great heart. DACA is a very, very difficult subject for me.
So difficult that Donald Trump then reversed himself again, announcing he'd cancel Obama's DACA order and pave the way for deportations.
Protests erupting nationwide after the Trump administration announced it will end DACA.
But Trump did not cancel DACA immediately. He announced he would cancel it in 6 months. The timeline totally made up. And the logic doesn't make much sense. If you think DACA's wrong or unconstitutional, then you'd just stop it immediately. And if you don't think that, there is no reason to cancel it before Congress works out a long-term solution. But Trump acted under pressure.
Okay, now wait a second. I don't necessarily agree with that at all. The question of DACA's constitutionality, does the President of the United States have the ability to do what he did, is wholly separate from, is DACA good for the United States? Is it a good policy? Those are two separate issues. And just because, do I think DACA is unconstitutional? I can't say that. Because the power over immigration is almost completely vested in the executive in this country, vested into the presidency in this country. So there's a lot that the president can do, good or bad, in relation to immigration. The question is DACA a good policy? And you can certainly agree with the constitutionality of a policy, but then disagree with its implementation as you see it as being a bad thing.
11 states led by yours, state of Texas, are threatening to sue the Trump administration if it does not follow through on the president's campaign promise to end a program protecting dreamers.
That was in the summer, and it may have scared Trump. But that fear would be based on ignorance, because no matter what a president does, states will sue. Ask Obama, who had Obamacare lawsuits at the Supreme Court 3 different times, and with 50 states, any big policy can catch a case.
Yeah, don't worry about what the states want. Don't worry about the American people want. We don't give a good GD about the American people. You're going to catch a lawsuit. You'll just get through it because you've got the Supreme Court there to back up whatever the federal government wants to do. So don't worry about the American people. By the way, speaking of unconstitutional, there is a big difference between, DACA and those sorts of things and Obamacare. Obamacare was a fascist institution put into our system to take over a sixth of the economy and force people to buy a product against their will and against their own self-interests. So by God, yes. The institution of Obamacare was completely unconstitutional, and unfortunately, Justice Roberts is a douche. Now, as far as illegal immigrants being in the United States, there's a myriad of different economic reasons. There's just a ton of different reasons why illegal immigration to the United States is a bad thing, but not the least of which is crime. And this is from WKSBY TV.
Developing news, an Uber driver suspected of sexually assaulting at least 4 women in San Luis Obispo has been charged with 10 felonies. KSBY News reporter Alexa Bertola has that story.
Karina, we learned that driver is an undocumented immigrant. We also learned that he's the suspect in 7 different investigations. Now, as far as the 10 charges filed, those have to do with 4 separate incidents.
The investigation ultimately led to evidence that supported charging crimes where he victimized 4 separate victims, all young females from our county and also college students from our community.
39-year-old Alfonso Alarcon Nunez of Santa Maria, also known to use the alias Bruno Diaz, has been charged with 10 felony counts from first-degree residential burglary to rape of an intoxicated victim. At a press conference, District Attorney Dan Dow says the crimes happened between December 17, 2017 and January 14, 2018.
Okay, well, that's good. I find that interesting, too, because we're talking about a rapist here, and I thought this was the whole Me Too movement thing going on. We didn't like rape. But I guess if it's an illegal immigrant who's crossed the border multiple different times, rape is okay. And rape of a minor at that is perfectly okay. So I guess it just depends on your politics at the time. All right, it's time to figure out what is in the news, my friends. Couple of different stories for you that I find very interesting. According to a report from the New York Post, New York police officers are upset that their police union has reduced the number of so-called get-out-of-jail-free cards issued to its members. What the hell is that? The police union's going to get out-of-jail-free card? Apparently, for years, Patrolmen in the Benevolent Association had been issued cards, and it was issued to current and retired police officers to distribute to family and friends. In prior years, active NYPD officers would receive 30 per year and retired officers 20 per year. The cards did not officially get the bearer out of jail or even out of traffic tickets, but they could be presented to police in hopes the cops would let them out of minor infractions like speeding tickets. The theory would be that the cops would believe that you were a close friend with another police officer and thus should let them out of infractions. This year, the PBA reduced the number of cards it issued to active members to 20 and retired members to 10. According to the Post, the program came under criticism when it came to light that the cards were being sold on eBay for as much as $200 a piece. Get out of jail free card. That shows a market and a lack of integrity. That is a market and a lack of integrity. If you do something wrong, you shouldn't get away with it simply because you know a police officer. Now, do I think most things that are illegal shouldn't be illegal? Yes, I agree. I think most laws are just arbitrary and capricious, but there's still the law. And the idea that a police officer gets a little badge that says, hey, I'm a cop, I don't have to follow the law. And these are my friends, they shouldn't have to follow the law either, is absolutely and totally ridiculous. Guns are in the news, my friends. D.C., of course, Washington there, has now been forced to allow concealed carry permits. It's still a fairly intricate process to get one, but it is more possible now than it ever has been. And a journalist and comic, his name is Tim Young, gained new appreciation for gun rights last week after he was mugged at gunpoint. A young reporter who runs No Things Considered, it's a video channel at the Washington Examiner, says contrary to what several outlets have reported, he's not a liberal. He's a conservative who's already pro-Second Amendment. He just chose to not conceal carry because he didn't think it would ever affect him. Young said this in an interview with DC's WUSA TV.
Tim Young, one of our regular panelists here on Off Script. He's a reporter with the Washington Examiner. And Tim, today I want to talk to you not about politics. I want to talk to you about something that happened to you personally that still has you shaken. Tell us what happened to you 2 days ago.
2 days ago, I was walking to the new wharf area from my place, which is very close down there, on a well-lit M Street at 7:45 at night, and I was attacked by two men. One was armed, one grabbed me from behind, and I was robbed.
What did they take?
They took my cell phone.
Right. How'd you feel? I'm terrified. I'm sure.
Terrified. There's no, when I talk.
Yeah, I felt great. I really enjoyed it. I like it when I'm groped. See, I'm not a woman. I love being groped. Anytime that I can get groped, even at gunpoint, that makes my nipples twinge. So yeah, I really enjoy. What the hell kind of question is that? What kind of interviewer are you? How did you feel? Did you feel scared? Well, did you?
To people about this, I'm a comic. You're scared. There's no man card involved. Like I was defenseless.
Right. A lot of people around.
Well, okay. That's not necessarily true. No, maybe you were defenseless, but in this instance, I'm not saying you shouldn't have had a gun or you didn't need a gun. I'm just saying it's possible you may have been able to defend yourself without a gun if you weren't such a pussy.
A lot of people, about 6 or 7 people saw this happen.
6 or 7 witnessed to this incident?
Yes.
Okay, and what was their reaction?
Well, only 2 of them called 911. The rest of the folks walked off.
Okay.
And that's very important. That is very important. We're talking about people here in general. Will people intervene? Will people not intervene? And this goes to the idea of relying on somebody else, including police officers, to defend your life. Will some police officers, will some good Samaritans help to defend your life? Absolutely, they will. Will some not? That's true, too. The problem is, as the one being attacked, you never know.
Two of them called 911 after, and while it was going on, they just watched?
Yeah, they just stood by and watched. As I was yelling for help, I'm being robbed, they stood by and watched.
And they were thinking to themselves, why didn't I get this on videotape? It would have been great for you two.
Okay. You saw the story we just did. More people applying for permits to carry concealed weapons. You tell me you're thinking about it.
I'm absolutely going to do it.
Why?
When you're in an instance where there's a gun pointed at you and your life is being threatened for your property and no one's going to help, and now I know that no one's going to help, I want to feel more secure. I want to feel safe and like I have something to defend myself with.
All right. Now, how did you feel before this incident, though?
I think I took my freedom for granted. I think I took for granted, I grew up in Southwest Baltimore. I've been in some bad places in my life, and nothing had ever happened to me. And I took that for granted, thinking that it would continue to go that way.
Yeah. I don't think she would mind me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are like that. Because the truth is, and this is where the perception gets off a little bit there. There's a lot of people that don't at all see the need for concealed carry to walk around with a gun all the time. And the reason is, it's twofold. Number one, they're a little scared of guns. They realize that guns are a serious thing. But number two, nothing has ever really happened to them. And if your perception of life is nothing's going to happen, then why is it that one needs to be prepared for something to happen? Why would you need to carry a gun? That's what's going through their head, and that's why they're so vehement against it, because they don't understand that something can happen. The stories abound of people that felt this way about guns until something happened. Then something happens, and suddenly they're like, I'm going to go get a gun. I'm going to get a howitzer. Where can I pick up a claymore? Because I want that to defend myself. Guns are a tool. Guns are a tool. That's all they are. Humans did not develop big teeth and claws. We developed big brains and the ability to use tools and develop those tools into something very strong and powerful. That's how we became the dominant species on the planet, is through our innovative use of tools. Weapons are tools. They're something we created so that we could get one over on the rest of nature and to defend ourselves against others. As a matter of fact, if you want to talk about equality, feminism, feminists should be the biggest proponents of firearms, because those firearms equalize an engagement between them and their male attacker, no matter what size that male attacker is. Because whether or not, let's say you're an 80-year-old, 90-year-old woman in a wheelchair, and you're being charged by a giant 6'9", 450-pound man, you, as that 85-pound, 90-year-old woman in a wheelchair, do have the capability of effecting an end to that danger by pulling the trigger. And that can only be achieved through the use of a firearm. Now, what he's saying is all good and it's all great, but then they go on in this conversation. I found something to be very funny. Remember, this guy was robbed at gunpoint.
My concern are people who are not trained to use a weapon. You're in a restaurant, something breaks loose, and some guy decides he's going to take matters, into his hands, and maybe he doesn't have the training. And so you got people out there who don't have the training with weapons, firing them. Say somebody tries to rob you, and they turn and they're walking away, and you happen
out of state. But I think right now it's more of a novelty issue for people from out of state to get that permit here.
Try this. I'm from Kentucky. I'm not afraid of guns. I've fired guns. I've had guns. Don't have one now. But my concern are people who are not trained to use a weapon. You're in a restaurant, something breaks loose, and some guy decides he's going to take matters, into his hands, and maybe he doesn't have the training. And so you got people out there who don't have the training with weapons, firing them. Say somebody tries to rob you, and they turn and they're walking away, and you happen to shoot them in the back. Now you've got a problem.
Yeah, that's why there's so much training that's involved in getting your concealed carry permit. But having a weapon and not having a permit for it in D.C. is nearly impossible. I mean, basically everything is illegal, from pepper spray to, the batons. Everything is basically illegal to have here in town.
It's basically illegal to have here in town. It's nearly impossible to get any of these things. Yet, strangely, the assailant had a gun. But it's nearly impossible. Nearly impossible. Yeah, it's nearly impossible unless you're willing to break the law. It is time for a very important portion of the show. It is In the Spotlight. Now, In the Spotlight is a segment where I like to go around the internet and find an important video that I think you should watch and be a part of, to spread around, to move the message forward, and then show it to you, present it to you. But, well, I'm going to spotlight myself today. Because I want to. It's my show. I can do whatever the hell I want to. And in the Spotlight, we're going to be talking about FBI corruption. According to PJ Media, there's serious talk on Capitol Hill about the appointment of a second special counsel amid several new bombshell revelations. First, there's allegations of shocking and substantial government surveillance abuses under President Obama outlined in the FISA abuse memo. Secondly, the FBI lost 5 months of key text messages between the anti-Trump, pro-Clinton FBI officials Peter Strzok's and his mistress Lisa Page. And now there's talk of a secret society of FBI officials, apparently, that met the day after Donald Trump was elected. According to the text messages, it seems as if there's a good case that the FBI, or at least many within it, possibly in command of it, are guilty of massive corruption. Senator Ron Johnson.
The fact that Loretta Lynch knew before she made the big announcement that, because of potential conflict of interest meeting Bill Clinton, I'm going to let James Comey decide that, combined with all the editing of that memo that was the production of that thing began 2 months before they actually interviewed Secretary Clinton. That's a little bit of a problem. No, there's so many things that indicate a deep-seated corruption at the highest levels of the FBI.
So we've learned a lot from these text messages, including the existence of some sort of secret society, but it's not clear exactly what that means. So let's concentrate on what we can prove, and that's timing. James Comey claimed in sworn testimony that the decision to let Hillary Clinton off the hook took place only after the Clinton interview on the matter.
Director, did you make the decision not to recommend criminal charges relating to classified information before or after Hillary Clinton was interviewed by the FBI on July the 2nd?
After. All I can do is tell you again, the decision was made after that because I didn't know what was going to happen in that interview.
According to the text messages, however, this is not true. Representatives John Radcliffe and Trey Gowdy, the two who have actually seen the text messages, spoke to Fox News.
Well, I don't think that former Director Comey could have been more clear that the decision wasn't made until after that July 2nd interview, and that's the way that it should have been. But as you just said, those text messages that we saw earlier today indicate that Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, and Loretta Lynch all apparently knew on the 1st of July that Hillary Clinton wasn't going to be charged. That's inconsistent with what the director said. So he needs to be given the opportunity to come back and clarify his testimony under oath.
So, in fact, the decision came before Loretta Lynch recused herself because of that tarmac meeting that she had with former President Bill Clinton.
It's really clear to me that the decision was made in May of 2016, 2 months before the press conference. So, of course, Loretta Lynch knew it wasn't going to be charged. Everyone except the public knew that she was not going to be charged.
Everyone knew but the public that she wasn't going to be charged. And they knew it before Hillary Clinton even was interviewed on the matter, and interviewed, by the way, by the same FBI agent that sent these text messages, the one who's biased for her, in her favor, was very, very clear. So the question is, in my opinion, who made the decision in the first place? Not this FBI agent. Was it James Comey? Who knows? Who made the decision? The president? Obama at the time? Or was this some sort of unilateral wet dream by a corrupt group of Clinton groupies bent on her exoneration? There was no indications either way, frankly. While Obama seems to be behind the scenes in all of this, somehow 5 months of text messages have disappeared. Material evidence has simply been lost by the FBI.
Well, these texts are incredibly important, Martha, for a number of reasons, both what's there and what's not there. So lay aside this glaring 5-month gap in text that the world's premier law enforcement agency somehow missed. Lay that aside. What we have seen, what Johnny and I saw today, was a text about not keeping text. We saw more manifest bias against President Trump all the way through the election into the transition. And I saw an interesting text that Director Comey was going to update the President of the United States about an investigation. I don't know if it was a Hillary Clinton investigation, because remember that had been reopened in the fall of 2016, or whether it was the Trump investigation. I just find it interesting that the head of the FBI was going to update the President of the United States, who at that point would have been President Obama.
So we've seen an awful lot of wrongdoing here. This thing looks very, very creepy. This thing looks like it's very, very dirty. And having said that, if you go back to when all of this was coming down at the time, you know, and put it in the contexts of history, we knew there was something weird going on at the time. I went back through the some of my previous videos, not that you've seen on YouTube or anything, but the videos that I used to take of my show when I was doing a radio talk show. And the first one I clicked on, almost within it was in the first 5 minutes of the show, first 10 minutes of the show, something like that, I ran across this piece detailing how I felt about what was going on at the time when all this stuff was being revealed. This is back from 2016.
Regarding the FBI is really coming under fire for their handling of Hillary Clinton and the email scandal and all the pseudo investigation that was going on from Fox News. The decision to let Hillary Clinton off the hook for mishandling classified information has roiled the FBI and the Department of Justice, with one person closely involved in the year-long probe telling FoxNews.com that career agents and attorneys on the case unanimously believe Democratic presidential nominee Clinton should have been charged, or at least have her credentials taken away. People are unhappy about it. This is from Fox News.
I was up in Washington, D.C. about 10 days ago doing some business and talked to people that had been in law enforcement at the federal level and also prosecutors who said the same thing. They did not know of a current FBI agent who was familiar with the case who did not think that Hillary Clinton should face legal jeopardy because of her actions in the email case. I think what a lot of agents are frustrated about is they believe in basically the old FBI, that they were going to take on whoever they needed to take on if they were powerful individuals or ordinary Americans who had violated the law. And this kind of goes to the heart of the credibility of the FBI.
And here's the cynical me coming out. FBI Director James Comey's dramatic July 5th announcement that he would not recommend that Clinton be charged left members of the investigative team dismayed and disgusted. Well, there's been a lot of talk about James Comey and the FBI in general. And there's been a lot of revelations about not only how Comey handled things, but how the investigation itself was handled, what questions were asked, immunity, and this, that, and the other thing. What was 160 agents or something that were working on this case. And there have been discussions about how questions were asked, what questions were asked, why wasn't there a grand jury? There's just a whole bunch of different things asked. And I have this feeling, and this is just the cynical me coming out, that a lot of these people that are voicing dismay with how the whole thing went down, a lot of the people within the FBI that are saying, I can't believe they did that. Oh, man, they really should have charged her, at least take her security clearance away. That would have been prudent. I'm wondering if a lot of those people are making the statements, making them publicly, making it known that, well, making those feelings known simply as a measure to protect themselves.
A measure to protect themselves. We heard about the secret society, right? The secret society of individuals who were within the FBI, trying to go after Donald Trump. May it be that this cabal of Clinton lovers has been around in the FBI for quite a little bit of time, and they were setting the siege to get themselves away with this by simply making the statement, oh, I can't believe we didn't go after Hillary Clinton. They say that back then, that way they can refer to these comments and their feelings at the time, all the while they're part of it. Is that a possibility, Mr. Conspiracy Theorist? Of course, I'm a conspiracy theorist on that one, but I'm just saying it's something you might want to consider as you are entertaining this whole thing. There's a lot more to this, and actually, I'm really feeling conspiratorial about it. And I'm putting together my own little conspiracy about it. I know that by the time I'm done with it, I'm going to feel bad about having said it. But like I said, I'm working on it. It will be out as soon as I can possibly get it done. I'm not the only one that's mad, though. Lou Dobbs, oh, Lou, Uncle Lou, very angry about this whole FBI investigation, the fact that they failed to preserve 5 months' worth of text messages. And he was on a show the other day. He was sitting there with John Bolton, former ambassador, and he had this to say.
The Justice Department and the FBI.
Oops,
again,
hold on.
Two agents, an agency and a department sworn to preserve the national security, violating law and order and the Constitution, and denying Congress the fulfillment of its responsibility, which is to oversee those two organizations. This is reprehensible. What do you think can be done the most expediently to preserve evidence and to bring people who are in positions of authority to bay to prevent further corruption?
Yeah. Look, I'm an alumnus of the Justice Department. I've worked with the FBI in a variety of different capacities when I was at Justice, when I've been at the State Department. I have enormous admiration for the average FBI agent and their work.
The rank and file, this is not an issue.
Yeah.
The
But
people who lead the Department of Justice and the FBI are corrupt, they're crooked, and they need to be removed forthwith.
Go at it. Get him. Ooh, does Lou have a knife on him? Get it off there, because that guy's getting ready to go nuts. He's going to get up somebody's ass. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen Lou Dobbs get quite that animated about something. Lou. Jeez. Oh, my God, it just won't stop. Issues that continue, and today, global warming. It kills, I tell you. There's a piece in USA Today that I find to be very interesting in regards to global warming, climate change, and the like. It goes like this. To counteract global warming, humans may someday consider spraying sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. I'm pretty sure that's poisonous. To form clouds and to artificially cool the earth. The idea behind the process known as geoengineering is to keep global warming under control. However, suddenly stopping the spraying would have a devastating global impact on animals, plants, and potentially even leading to extinctions. That's according to the first study on the potential biological impacts of climate intervention, not climate change, but climate intervention. Rapid warming after stopping geoengineering could be a huge threat to the natural environment and biodiversity, said the study's co-author. If geoengineering ever stopped abruptly, it would be devastating, so you would have to be sure that you stopped it gradually. And it's easy to think of scenarios that would prevent that, like lack of funding or just some sort of mistake that could end the geoengineering in a sudden fashion. It's bigger than that, my friends. There's a ton of different stupid ideas out there on how they can end the problem that doesn't exist. The nice thing about those ideas is if you were to get the billions of dollars in your pocket to implement them, then it's fine because you can just claim effectiveness having never done anything, right? And truth is, you could potentially make things worse. There was an idea, of course, the bigger the idea, the more outlandish and the less chance it is that these ideas will actually come to fruition. But one of them was to put giant mirrors in space, put mirrors in space that reflect the sun's rays for a certain period of time. And because the Earth would be getting less radiation from the sun, the temperature would go down. This is absolutely true. Virtually the only heat that we get, at least the only heat that we get on the surface of the planet, the only energy we get on the surface of the planet comes from the sun. So if you remove that energy source, you are going to reduce the heat on the planet. The problem is, very easily could swing us into an ice age and kill everyone. All the worst predictions of global warming will be brought on mankind by itself if they decide to intervene. We start, by the way, with all this geoengineering. There's going to be money behind it. There's going to be money to be made. And if we start, we will never stop. And here's the sickening part. If we start, we'll never stop, no matter how badly we are actually destroying the environment. Because no one's going to admit that their pet project that they're getting paid billions of dollars for by the government, stolen from the people, they'll never admit that they were wrong, and they will never take responsibility for their own actions. These are solutions, or non-solutions as it were, for a problem that doesn't exist. And I have a feeling we're going to see how much this problem doesn't exist within the next decade or so, as temperatures, there's good evidence from what I've seen that temperatures will be falling due to a lack of solar output. And it's kind of a frightening thing, to tell you the truth. I don't like the cold. I don't like it. And it seems like it's only going to get worse. Look, friends, ever since I was a young person, the environmental brainwashing has been nonstop. I remember watching Captain Planet when I was a kid. It was a television cartoon. I believe Ted Turner put that thing on. He bankrolled that thing. And it was all about a creature that was born of the planet, could save the planet, and use his superhuman powers to stop the evil polluters out there. And it would go after big business and all these things. And what we're seeing today is we've got a lot of people that are probably my age that have kids, and they're doubling down on it, and you're scaring the crap out of kids who have no context of time, and telling them that the way we live our lives, the little things that we do are killing the planet, and thereby they're a bad person. And by the way, it's all science. It's all science. It's all fake science by scientists who are getting rich off of it, but that's what's going on. We have to stop allowing the religion of climate change to be taught in our schools. If we don't, we will lose the planet. All right. Question of the day. It's about Nazis, my friends. Polish authorities have arrested and charged 3 people with propagandizing fascism after a news program revealed details about how a neo-Nazi group in Poland celebrated Adolf Hitler in a ceremony last year. I guess it was Adolf's birthday or something. The prime minister said that the state, quote, would not tolerate any use of totalitarian symbols. So did they take down the EU flag for that day? I don't know that they did. And wants to see the neo-Nazi group outlawed. Outlaw the group. A private news channel, TVN24, broadcast an expose called Pride and Maternity, a neo-Nazi group whose members dressed in Nazi uniforms and praised Hitler last spring on what would have been the German dictator's 128th birthday. So it was a TV news show about a bunch of people dressing up as Nazis and praising Hitler on his birthday. That's what we're talking about here. That's the propaganda that we're talking about here. Of course, Poland was invaded and occupied by Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union during World War II, and the existence of pro-Hitler groups has sparked shock and revulsion in the country. About 6 million Polish citizens were killed in the conflict, while Polish cities were razed and the country's cultural heritage looted. Poland is a very different place, okay? They're going to have a different view of this than I would because it's a bit closer to home. Polish people have a rich history with Nazis. But notwithstanding that history, should Nazis be banned by the law, by the government? We're talking in general here. I'm not telling what the Polish people should do. I'm just saying from a philosophical standpoint, should Nazis be banned? Should we simply outlaw and attack groups, even if those groups have caused no physical harm up to this point? Right? So just because you're a Nazi, if you were to say you were a Nazi, does not mean, or that you you own a swastika, does not mean that you specifically are responsible for the Holocaust. Doesn't mean that. If you never hurt anybody, then you're not guilty of hurting anybody. That's the truth. A lot of people will feel differently about this. I think there's a danger there when we begin to ban groups. You begin to ban because the group is not important. It's the ideology behind the group that's important, and not only the ideology, but the psychology behind the group that's important. And those psychologies are the things we have to battle. And by banning groups, you eventually forget about groups and what they did. And you cannot any longer use them as an example for why a certain ideology or certain psychological set of circumstances is not good. What am I talking about here? Did Hitler kill Jews because he hated them? No, the hate came later. The hate came later. That emotion of hate came later. Hitler killed Jews because they were the other that he blamed for the plight in his life. So the psychological issue here is this proclivity that all people have to blame whatever it is that you're unhappy about on someone else. It's real simple. Whatever problem that you're having in life, you blame it on someone else. Generally, that other group doesn't even know you're complaining about them, but you blame it on somebody else and then demonize that group of people and react badly against them. That's what's happening here in the United States today. You have the leftists out there that are blaming all white people, specifically white men, for all the problems in society. And not just problems in society, for all the personal problems in one's life. If you have not achieved what you wish to achieve, if you do not have as much money as the next guy, it's not because of you, it's because of white people. And you wonder why people get attacked all the time. And by the way, banning Nazis may not be the first of all your problems. The danger in Europe right now comes from Islam. The people are getting raped and killed physically by Islam. And not only is Islam not banned, it's outwardly and openly protected. All right, stuff to know. We got to do one last story here before we wrap things up. This one is completely bizarre. You would think it's out of Florida. It ain't, surprisingly enough. It's not out of Florida. This one is out of California. Yeah. A physical education teacher at an elementary school outraged parents. I like how they put this is from CBS LA. Well, they outraged parents. I think he did more than just outrage parents. Just the anger of outrage is not the story here. School outraged parents and upset students when he stripped naked on campus on Friday and proceeded to chase nearby 2nd and 5th graders.
Not going to believe this. It was all caught on camera. Local teacher caught with his pants down on a playground. That bizarre incident happened on a grade school campus.
And it unfolded right in front of the kids. KCAL 9's Tom Wade is live.
Where the hell did this guy come from? Where did the guy come from? That's what I want to know. It would never dawn on me or anyone I know to just strip naked, well, in public, but certainly on a playground with kids while you're the teacher. That's the concept of that is not even, I couldn't even fathom it. If there was a drive-by shooting and I was wounded in the buttocks and the emergency personnel came and the children all gathered around and they have to remove my pants such that I can receive necessary medical care, I would say no. Just, they don't need to see my pee-pee. I know that sounds, that scenario. That would be the first thing I would think is the kids don't need to see. Let's get a little secrecy in this general area. That's how I would feel about it. But apparently this guy had some sort of reason why it's time to whip out the old junk.
At Carthay Center Elementary with more on what happened, this bizarre incident, Tom.
Yeah. We're waiting. Tom, wait. Should we keep waiting? No? Okay.
Else had happened in the playground here just behind me. It's not clear how many kids saw this whole disturbing episode play out, but parents are very worried about the long-term damage. Cell phone video shows part of a disturbing episode where a man took off all of his clothes on the playground of Carthay Center Elementary School. The man in the video was teaching a PE class at the school when he began stripping naked.
Well, at least he's not fat. I mean, that could have really damaged them. Actually, wait a second. If he was fat, if he was a giant, or if it was a woman, giant fat woman, this wouldn't even be a story. The kids would then be suspended for having made fun, fat shaming the giant fat obese teacher that stripped naked. We wouldn't even worry about that. She should be proud of her body. Her big old flabby labia is wonderful to show off. Yeah, how dare you say anything awful about the way her armpits stink? No, you're bad kids. So I guess this guy's problem is he's in good shape.
In front of the children, parents are understandably mortified.
He was supposed to be helping them learn, PE, run around and have fun. But he undressed and started chasing the kids while he was naked. And then the kids ducked and dodged and ran into some of the classrooms and, got safe haven that way.
That guy is holding it back. Dad there is holding it back. Dad wants to go get an axe handle and figure this thing out. But he's on TV right now and can't do that.
A construction worker passing by recorded this video. Eventually, the man puts his clothes back on, and you can see him being confronted by what appears to be school officials. School administration sent.
Notice how the school officials aren't walking up to the guy. They're not going to intervene in that way. They're not going to run out there with a blanket or a sheet. No, they're going to be like, all right, we're going to keep our distance from crazy dude with no pants and call the police. How about that? Very weird. Wouldn't the first thing you do be like, let's get the kids out of here? All right, let's do it. Let's handle the kids and we'll call the cops and do it. I don't know. Would you go up to the guy? I'm naked running around. No, you wouldn't.
This letter home to parents. An individual began behaving in an unusual way, prompting us to contact.
Behaving in an unusual way. Very lawyerly of you. He stripped naked and was swinging his junk at little people. That's more than behaving in an unusual way.
Contact law enforcement. As a safety precaution, our school went on a brief lockdown while officers responded and took the individual into custody. One parent we spoke with says his second grader saw the whole thing play out. The parent asked that we not show his face.
The guy could have hurt one of the children, whoever this man was, rolling around naked on the floor. And plus all the kids seen his private parts. Very embarrassing, very upset.
School police say the
I don't think they're really considered private parts in the context of this conversation.
man in the video worked for the STAR program, an after-school enrichment program.
enrichment program?
Mental health counselors are now available for the kids, but the damage may be very difficult.
Enrichment has a very broad definition, right? I mean, technically, this could be in the curricula. I don't know. It depends on how you define enrichment.
To undo.
We want answers. They're not giving us answers. So we lose the trust in the school. We lose the trust in the school district. What are we supposed to do?
And, of course, the school district says, well, we can't comment on this. This is an internal personnel issue. No, this is a crime issue. This is a issue that involves a lot of different people by a weirdo, and you should be speaking of it. I understand that the school wants to defend themselves, but schools, your job is not to defend yourself. Your job is to take care of the kids. That is it for the Newman Show. It's all done, my friends. Thank you so much for joining in for the past hour. Hope you found it enlightening and enrapturing and enticing, because I would like to entice you to go to my website, thenewmanshow.com. That's where you can get the links for all of the shows, all the stories on today's show. You can get the Facebook, YouTube links, all that cool stuff. Newmaniac1 is my Twitter. And most importantly, please, please, please support the show on Patreon. It's the only way I stay in business, my friend. Just go to the website, click support, and it will take you to Patreon for me. All right? Have a great day.